Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and introduce myself a little bit and then pass it over to Kelsey and we can get started. So, my name is Paige DeLozier. I'm the engagement marketing manager for Talking Points. I used to be a teacher myself for a little over 6 years here in Tennessee, and I taught a few different grades, but second grade was my home. So, any second grade teachers out there, you are my people. And so, yeah, now I work for Talking Points, and you'll learn a little bit more about that organization later on in the webinar. So I'll pass it on over to Kelsey.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I am currently in my 8th year as a kindergarten teacher, but before that, I had pretty much every odd role that you can think of when you're getting started, and a lot of my experience was 4th through 7th grade. So for anybody that's like, oh, she's just with the littles all day, I've got you. I've got some examples from the older kids. So um, I like to say I've done a little bit of everything within and a little outside of my license.
So you have signed up for and joined when universal family engagement is the solution, turning challenges into opportunities for connection. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's find out what we can help you with and what we can talk about. We've already introduced ourselves. We're here. Let's get started. So just so you know what it is we're going to do today, so you can get adjusted, is we're going to explain to you what we mean when we say universal family engagement, because that is kind of a new term that you may not have heard from anyone else before. We're going to look at some challenges and the solutions that we've envisioned for them, and maybe you have some ideas as well. And then we will have time for a Q&A and talk about some next steps, and especially talking about talking points that I introduced at the beginning. So we would like to start by immediately getting involved with you. So we're going to make a word cloud with the question, what challenges first come to mind in regards to student success?
And the code will be, let's see, I'll put that in the chat here. So we're good. 3864, if you're there. 1089.
Yes. And the question again was, what challenges first come to mind in regards to student success? And our word cloud should start. Oh, here we go. Awesome.
Contact.
Oh, wow. Y'all are facing a lot. See, behavior. Engagement is the number one. It's the biggest one there. Attendance, communication, motivation, support. You see it.
Family and family support.
Yeah.
Ooh, I see belonging.
Belonging. That's a really good one. Wow. I would look at this honestly, if I were still in the classroom, I would probably look at this word cloud and feel a little bit validated. And feel like, oh wow, a lot of these teachers are feeling and seeing the same thing I am every single day. I'm seeing food insecurity and resources a lot.
And trauma.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I see illiteracy among families. Okay, So we're gonna save that, keep that in the back of your mind. You can keep adding to it if you're still on that site. I'm gonna move on in the presentation to what universal family engagement is, and we will come back to this word cloud and select some of those challenges to work with in a few minutes. So we're not forgetting it. So before we work with those challenges and find solutions, we have to understand what universal family engagement, sorry about that, is. So you've probably heard of family engagement, which if it is effective, data has shown, let's just say family engagement is the most underutilized superpower when it comes to addressing the needs and driving student outcomes. You know that because you see families all the time. And if you've worked with any families, you've seen the effect it can have on their students and their students' success. I'm positive that you know that. And research has shown that family engagement is it's twice as likely to predict, twice as effective in predicting student success than their family's socioeconomic status. So a lot of times we're like, this student, is impoverished. They don't, everything's against them. They're not going to make it. But if that family is engaged and involved effectively, their chances double, right? And then effective family engagement equates to an additional $1,000 per student to a school's annual budget. These are huge numbers that teachers aren't shared, to show that family engagement, if it's done effectively, makes a huge difference in the lives of the children that they serve every day. So when we talk about ensuring that it's effective, universal family engagement has 4 elements to it, 4 factors. We like to describe a universal family engagement as being purposeful, inclusive, responsive, and enduring. Now, what does that mean? Purposeful is going to mean that it focuses intentionally on improving student outcomes. So every time you touch base with a family, there's a purpose. There's a reason that you're reaching out, that you're sending that text or that email, or that you're talking to that family. It's focused on a goal or a student outcome with that student. It's inclusive. It advances equitable access for all students and families. It doesn't leave out the students who don't speak the language. It doesn't leave out the exceptional students or the special education students. Universal family engagement is responsive, so it adapts to evolving best practices and community needs. We're always learning. We're lifelong learners as teachers, right? So your practices are always adapting and evolving as you learn this research, right? As you learn new things that come out. So it's responsive, and it is enduring, deepens trust, and strengthens culture over time. So universal family engagement is not one conference after grades come out. Universal family engagement is not meeting them at open house, right? It's enduring. It's a relationship. It's trust. It's these big things that actually make a difference in a child's life and in a family's life. Doesn't mean it has to be hard. Go ahead.
I would say I was going to add to that. It's also vulnerable. Like when I am engaged in a family conversation and there's a disagreement, and we all know we all have those disagreements with families. And it's both sides being vulnerable and deepening that trust by recognizing that there's humanity in all. And those conversations might not be easy, but if that trust develops and both sides are willing to be vulnerable, those connections can be incredibly powerful.
I absolutely love that. It's vulnerable. And yeah, if you've built that trust with a family because you've been purposeful and inclusive, then you can be vulnerable with a family. That's great, Kelsey. So then your definition for universal family engagement is the practice of improving outcomes for all students by fostering effective partnerships with families, regardless of barriers or circumstances. So all of those challenges that we listed, language, resources, technology, attendance, behaviors. Those are things that we sometimes have control over, sometimes have no control over. They're things that we are inevitably going to face. Regardless of those things, it's the practice of improving student outcomes for all of the students, not just the ones that we know we can bring up in grades, by working with families, regardless of what's against them or what's in the way. Okay, so now that we've defined what UFE is, let's look at some challenges and the way that we can use universal family engagement to build some solutions for them. And we're going to go one at a time so it's not overwhelming. We've come up with some challenges that we knew teachers face, and then we're going to pull some from your word cloud that you've come up with to also work with solutions, because we want this to be useful for you. If we don't get the time in this hour that we have together to work with some from your word cloud, we will add those to this deck before we send it out to you after the webinar. Deal? Hopefully that's a good deal. All right, so the first challenge that we absolutely knew teachers face on a regular basis is academics, falling grades. So we know that teachers are going to have kids who are failing, right? You see a kid who is starting to fail, or they're not turning in homework, whatever you see. The first way you use universal family engagement to help with that is connecting with all of your families at the beginning of the year with clear expectations. Now, what that means is every family in the classroom understands what the expectations are for turning in homework, for doing assignments, what's the grading scale. Every family got it at the same time in their home language, so that everyone understands their expectations for grading, for academics, so that there's not an unfair, scale for everyone. That's how you are proactive in meeting this challenge. And then once a red flag appears, because someone's going to struggle, no kid is perfect. Once those red flags appear, you touch base. You don't wait for conferences. We touch base when we see something going on. And that's when we start to say, hey, I'm seeing that Sophia is struggling. Let's talk about how we can support. Let's build some goals together for math or for reading with her. And then setting those goals together. I got ahead of myself there. So Kelsey, what can you share about this first one? And I'll look at questions.
I think one of the things that a lot of teachers do, just best practice, is connecting about something positive at the beginning of the year to strike up that relationship in general at the beginning of the year with families, and engaging in that conversation of expectations like you had mentioned. When those red flags do start to pop up, one of the things that I enjoy doing with families is looping the student into that. And even with my young kindergartners, if it might be more like a behavior concern or an academic concern, or they set a reading goal. If reading is really tough for one of my kiddos and they read a book, we make a video, we send it to parents. If they have any milestone, we include the kids in that conversation. That way, when I communicate with the parents separately about concerns, they know that we're still celebrating the milestones. We know that the kids are excited to learn. So having the kids involved is one of those things that parents love to see videos of their kids throughout the day. But also having that communication off to the side becomes easier because they know we care.
That's awesome. I love that. We got a good question here from Kelly that says, what are strategies and metrics to measure effective family and community engagement? And how do you know your FCE efforts are working? I can answer from like a talking point standpoint, and then Kelsey, if you have something to add. I would say I can share the question. So from talking points, which we are a platform, a solution that I can show you at the end, we have analytics built into our platform that can show you who you have connected with the most, who you've talked to the most, how they've responded. You have your conversations that you can print out, and like how they've responded, the analytics, the actual data, that sort of thing. And then you kind of know that it's working when you have that trust, when you have those positive connections and those conversations, and then you see student success coming out of that. You see the change from prior to changing my practices, the students' behavior, attendance, academics were this way. And then after I started these best practices, I saw a positive change. So, Kelsey, do you have
Yeah.
something else?
I would add to that. So I primarily do use talking points, which you'll see later. And the tone that parents write to me in is how I know how the engagement is going. If I get something very formal, good morning, Miss Odell, how are you? I recognize that I haven't necessarily had that bond with that family yet. But I got a message the other day that was just, hey, I messed up. Can you help me? And I'm like, that is a family that feels comfortable. That is a family that I have communicated with, and I've done well in that sense. And I do use the analytics, but I appreciate that human to human piece as well. And when somebody's completely relaxed and sends the emoji that looks like this, and they're like, whoops, I know that we have that mutual back and forth. And it just, regardless of the issue that comes up, it's really good feeling to communicate with that family.
So it's a lot about tone too, then.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
Very.
sense. Just like in a friendship or any sort of relationship.
Oh, yeah, I
That's
have one
interesting.
friend, if she replies to a text message of mine with the word interesting, I know that we're kind of at a done point, and I think we all have those friends, so but, the emojis come through, and it's a very natural way of speaking. When you have really engaged a family, you feel it.
Absolutely. Like if one parent says we need to talk,
Mhm.
you know. But if they
Yes.
say, "Hey, I have a question," you
Mhm.
know,
Very different.
it's part of it is intuition, I guess.
Mhm.
But then we have the data as well.
Yes.
All right. So the second challenge that we knew a lot of teachers were going to have questions with was attendance, empty seats. This could be one student that is becoming truant. This could be you have like a large attendance problem. I saw this. This was one of our largest challenges on the word cloud too. Um, so a few of the like actual action steps that we put on here was same one. Connect with all families at the beginning of the year with clear expectations. And spoiler alert, that's going to be the first step for almost every single challenge. I think sometimes as teachers, and I'm speaking, I know that it's been a few years since I've been in the classroom, but if I could go back and make fewer expectations, but so much clearer, and to every single family in their home language, um, just as clear as they could possibly be. At the same time, have like a very just so I don't know. It's it seems so simple, but I think we get into a routine of, well, they should know that, but there's so many families who didn't grow up in an American public school, didn't grow up in America at all, or had an awful school experience. There's just so many reasons that they may not know, and us setting that expectation, just wiping our brain and saying pretend they don't know anything, you know and setting the clear expectation that way with that mindset uh, will set us up for success so much better. And then clarifying how attendance affects their child's success. pulling out the data of this number of missed days of school means they're truant. This number of days means someone's going to come to your door. This number of days mean, this is the person you contact if he misses a day. Because every district is different and they have to write a note. These days are excused, these days are not. Attendance is a really complicated thing, and districts take it very seriously because it's a legal issue, it's a budget issue, it's a really big deal, and families don't always know that. I see someone saying, when you say connecting with families, are you talking about sending letters home? That's a great question. It depends on the family. It depends on you. It depends on what you prefer. When I say connecting with families, because I work with Talking Points, our solution is a primarily text-based solution that allows families to send text messages to families. Allows teachers to send text messages to families and vice versa, because data has shown that every family is much more likely to have a cell phone than reliable access to internet or to a landline phone or anything like that. So the most universal method of communication is going to be text. And so when I say communicating with families, I'm primarily saying text, but communicating however you can is what I'm saying at the moment. So good question, good clarifying question. And then I'll do the last one on attendance and then let Kelsey talk. Be their person. Building the trust at the beginning of the year with them so that they feel comfortable asking you questions that are difficult, like, who am I supposed to tell that I can't bring them to school whenever? Or what does truant mean? Asking embarrassing questions. Let them know that they can ask you anything, that you'll be there, that you'll tell them where to go. That's the kind of thing that a lot of families need, especially if they do have traumatic experiences in school and they don't feel comfortable being in that building. That's what they need.
Right. So, I appreciate what you said, Paige, about how some families are, didn't grow up in America. They don't understand the system. It's all new. It's all big. I even think about myself. If I were thinking of my childhood experience growing up pretty much the same area I currently work, things are different. It's not a phone call or a pen and paper letter to school. There is an online Google form that is submitted for attendance. And so you have to actually navigate the procedures to do all of these things. And what I have found with my 8 years in kindergarten, just starting there, when I had students gone at the beginning of my career, they might be gone and I'd never know why. Parents weren't communicating that with me. Since I started actively engaging my families, I still might have kids absent, but parents always reach out. And sometimes it's clarifications on rules. I think we all went through districts that had changing policies with COVID. And now the illnesses that come up. Am I allowed to send my child to school? They have this fever, they have this, the sniffles. What is the rules? And those back and forth conversations are fantastic at helping families understand how and when their child should be at school. I saw a really great question that I'm just going to bring up here because it was kind of about this. Recommendations for families that arrive middle of the year or end of the year. That is my year this year. I have had a lot of new students join my class, and we are about at that middle of the year time period. And I feel like it really takes that conscious effort because it's so easy to think about connections at the beginning of the year when everybody's new, and it's kind of what you're programmed almost to think about. But when somebody joins in the middle of the year, what I recommend doing that's worked for me is sending out specific weekly messages for the first couple weeks, at least, if the child is doing well. Hey, Paige joined our class this week and she met a new friend and ate at the lunch table together. They're such a fun pair. And then a week later, wow, this Paige is doing such a great job with her literacy work. Her letters are looking fantastic. and just kind of scheduling myself, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed in the classroom and so easy to forget, that I find that if I just say Thursdays are the day that I communicate with my new families. And if it happens more, that's great. But that helps me to make that purposeful connection with somebody that's not at the beginning of the year.
I think that's a super realistic goal to set for yourself. And I love that answer. I also, I don't know if it was Pinterest or where I found this when I was teaching, but I had a folder in my, or like several folders in my classroom, because where I taught was the most transient school ever. And I would get a new kid every week. And I had a kid who was designated to hand a like a new student folder to anyone who came in, and it had all the first week stuff in it. That was the stuff we handed out at the beginning of the year, because after all that beginning of the year stuff, I don't know where all that stuff went. So I built those folders at the beginning of the year with like the welcome note and the fill this out about yourself, that sort of thing, that would help me get to know them a little bit, so that they don't miss out on that sort of thing. I also saw a really great comment from Bick. It says, sending surveys home, formal or asking for engagement feedback, informal, and emphasizes that family school engagement is important to you. Surveys from families, it's a great idea. And one of the features that we have in Talking Points is polls that you can send out to families, where you just send out an announcement to all your families via text. And it's a poll like, how does your student like to learn the most? Do they like to try things on their own, reading, watching something being done, or listening? And they just tap and you immediately get all the responses. And surveys, polls, anything like that, you get so much information from the experts. The parents are the experts in their child. So information from parents is invaluable. And there's a lot of good discussion going on in the chat. So Kelsey, if you see anything else that's helpful, let me know.
Yep, a lot of people are. I had two that popped up. That reliable contact info was one that just popped up. So I will say, like, perfect example from this year, we get the enrollment paperwork, and that is what we go by. So if they don't give it to us, we obviously don't have any other information. But within the app, I noticed that all of a sudden one of my parents' names changed. The phone number was the same, but names had changed, and I knew that that family was new to country, and lots of different things that they had to set up. So all of a sudden, I'm learning more about my family that way. So by building trust, I find that I get that type of information from families. So they're more likely to reach out and say, "Hey, I got a new phone number," or "This isn't working. I haven't heard from you. My number changed and I forgot to tell you." So establishing that relationship is the best way that I have found to get that reliable contact information. And I think the one other one about connections, I love how many of these questions are about connecting, because connections are so valuable. So Michelle had asked, let's see if I'm learning tool, what suggestions for connecting parents and caregivers with one another? That one kind of depends on your school district, because there's data privacy involved too. So ways that are following district policy to make sure that you're doing things that don't violate the policies. A lot of suggestions that people in my area have used are allowing parents to opt in to a directory within the grade level that could be shared. So that is the way that we approach it. And parents always give permission, and they get to pick, like, one family might just want their cell phone. One family might just want an email. So they get to opt in information that's shared with other families.
Awesome. All right. We will pop it back into the questions in a few minutes. Let's go over another challenge and solution. Personal concerns concerning mental health. I know that that's been a huge concern for a lot of educators, especially over the past few years, kind of regardless of what grade level you're in, I think. So I looked at some of our UFE practices and surprise, connecting with all families at the beginning of the year, whether that's, this one's not necessarily with expectations, but just connecting with them on a human level, on a personal level, saying, hey, this is who I am. I'm going to be your child's teacher. Letting them know that you are a safe person for them to leave their child with for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Because again, you don't know what their previous experiences in a class setting is, in a school setting is, what trauma they're carrying from COVID, from schooling, from teaching at home, from any of that is. And we want school to be a safe place. And they are also a huge stakeholder in what that schooling experience is. So respecting their expertise in their child's life, and showing them that you are a safe person who cares exponentially about what happens to their child and what their child does every day. Just showing them that first thing, not starting with, so what's your child's academic history? Not starting with all of that, but just starting with, I'm so excited to have your child in the classroom. What are you excited about? The positive connections at the beginning of the year. I could talk about that forever. And I already said respecting and accepting their expertise. They were their child's first teacher from day one. They know so much that they may not know they can share with you. They may not even know that they are their child's first teacher and that you have so much to learn from them. And then checking in with them regularly. Again, it's not just conference, open house, end of year. It's building relationships, them knowing they can come to you. You're a resource, they're a resource. It needs to be a relationship throughout the year. Let's see. I feel like
Somebody did want to be reminded of beginning of year. So BOY,
I'm
beginning
sorry.
of year.
Yes, BOY is beginning of year. I'm sorry for the acronym. I had very little space to work with. I do see in the chat that mental health has been something that a lot of educators have had to deal with. Even teachers, Karina, I am so sorry, but thank you for sharing with us that you had your 4th suicide assessment just recently. And I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. These are things that educators do have to deal with. And my heart goes out to you. And I hate that that's even something you have to consider or think about. Yeah. Working with families and building relationships with families is the most that we can do to show them that we are there for support, not just academics. We're not just there for academics. We're there to build relationships with their kids and with them. Do you have anything to add, Kelsey?
Yeah, I wish I could remember who originally said this to me. But kids come to school with their backpacks and they're invisible backpacks. And I can't remember if I read it or somebody said it. I wish I knew. But I look around the last couple of years at what my students have come to school with in those invisible backpacks. And some of my kids have beat cancer. Some of them have lost a parent. And connecting with the families are sometimes the only way that you find out just how much they're dealing with. And it completely changes your approach to the family and the student. And sometimes it's mental health of the student, sometimes it's mental health of the parent that impacts the kids in your presence. And like Paige said, sometimes being a trusted adult for the adult that you're talking to and not just the student becomes so valuable for student success. And success might look differently depending on a student's circumstance. Not everybody may end up perfect scores by the end of the year, but somebody might show up every day. And somebody might try their best. Somebody might find a trusted adult. Somebody might make a friend. And it all comes back to being there for the child and being there for the family.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that. Who is it? Richard Velasquez. Thank you for saying always come from a place of kindness. And that, I mean, you're all educators. You're going into those classrooms every day, meeting kids with kindness and not knowing everything, but knowing what you do about them and being that person for them. So loads of respect and love for all of you.
And I would also like to add, being there for everybody is also hard. So, a moment of appreciation for everybody that does work with families, because that emotional toll on ourselves is also existing. And I think taking that extra time, sometimes it's okay to unplug for a little bit and take a deep breath, because I know that at the end of the day, sometimes who was it? People are chatting and I love it, but I lost the message. Somebody said, I am my family's therapist. Did you see that one, Paige?
I did, yes.
And that is a lot for teachers to hold true. So just know that everybody in this call is amazing, and showing up for families is a lot of work. And you all deserve the utmost greatest days in the universe, because it's not easy to be in that role either.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay. Let's see. I'm trying to think of where to go next. You guys are sharing so much. I hope you're reading all the chats, everyone, because you're sharing so much great information. What is next in the presentation is we could grab 2 challenges from your word cloud and help talk through some of the ways that we can solution for those. And then we can talk about, we actually do have some time to talk about talking points at the very end. And I do also want to, just because we did come into this, I do also want to just throw out there, if any of you have not gone through ACEs training, since we are talking about trauma and children, if you have not gone through adverse childhood experiences training, highly, highly, highly recommend it. It was one of the best trainings I ever went through to understand my children and to understand myself, honestly. Highly recommend you look it up and have your district or your school, whoever, send you, or just go yourself, because huge.
We just did that in my district, and I did a lot of my own unpacking after ACEs training.
Same.
And I think teachers taking care of themselves too is incredibly important, to be there for your kids. And yep, it's a hardy one. The person that led the training just said, I'm here for you. If you want to talk about some of the things that came up for you today, it's nice to have safe people for us as educators as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, I think we should ACES. It's adverse childhood experiences. I'll put that in the chat. Cool. Absolutely. So, real quickly, let's talk about 2 of the things from your word cloud. Again, I will add the word cloud and a couple of them with solutions into the deck and the email that I send to everyone after this. And then I will, and then we'll move on. But I would love for this to be an open discussion. Keep chatting. You guys are going to help us come up with these solutions. So one of the things from the word cloud that I think we would love to work on is the motivation. I see that as one of the larger words in the cloud is motivation. And I can see that honestly being a K through 12 problem or issue, challenge. So for kids, for families, honestly, for anyone. So I can't type it into the presentation at the moment, but what type, and that could be an academic issue, that could be an attendance issue, that could affect literally any part of a student's success. So Throw it in the chat. Kelsey, speak up. Anyone, what types of solutioning involving family engagement do we think could help with motivation?
Well, the answers are coming in the chat. Back in my middle school days, I actually had it was a very unique situation, but it was a combined 5th, 6th, and 7th grade classroom. And one of the things that was really powerful for some of my 7th graders was that mentorship role and fostering connections. And parents would reach out and, getting to know them. They'd say, like, my student does very, very well. My son does really a great job. If you are allowing him a leadership opportunity. And we paired him with a younger student, and it was absolutely beautiful. And side note, that student, I've been teaching long enough where he was a bus driver on one of our field trips, and that really came back, and he was talking about his experiences. And not only did I not realize that I had students old enough to have jobs, that was a little hard for me, but it was great to see that dynamic.
That is enduring. If we want to talk about the 4 elements of UFE, that is enduring. And I see making sure the right person is connecting with the family. That is huge. Because we were talking earlier about teachers also being dysregulated, or I saw that in the chat. We talk about kids being dysregulated all the time. If an adult is dysregulated and tries to talk to a family, that's not going to help. So absolutely choosing the right purpose or person. And I was going to say that's purposeful family engagement. So yeah, I think everyone's getting it. I think we're understanding family engagement. Lindsay says, finding out what they like, incorporating likes into activities and worksheets.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, I
Always
love
positive.
providing dinners on Title I Family Engagement Night. Food is the biggest way to bring a community together.
Absolutely. I will use your chats actually as the solutioning options for these. Y'all are brilliant. Uh, Identifying what connects with your student. And when your families see that you've taken an interest in your students' interests, I think families see that and see that you care. Absolutely. Give families tools to talk to their children about goals,
Mhm.
interests, their future, and their values. Absolutely. We kind of training families because families haven't gone to school to be teachers. It's just kind of what comes with being a parent, and no one tells them how. Like I was a teacher, but I taught 2nd grade, and now I have a toddler, and I don't know how to teach a toddler. Sometimes she's running around, and I'm like, I don't know how to do this.
And I think that vulnerability piece comes back to, I'm pretty sure I said that word wrong, sorry.
Yes.
Vulnerability.
Oh, you're good.
A couple years ago, I had a family come in and they're like, kindergarten again. I said, "We've never said no because we thought if we were their friend, everything would be okay." And so much of helping families is helping them with what they don't know. They don't, nobody's offered parenting classes. Nobody has offered education into being teachers. And having that open communication is so powerful.
Absolutely. And the last one I want to mention, even though all of these are brilliant, is making positive phone calls or notes home, not only negative. I cannot tell you if I could go back in time and reach out to all those families that I only talked to about the bad issues and say, you know what, your kid is wonderful most of the time. If I could do that, our relationships would be so much better, and I guarantee the kid would be so much more successful. But I didn't know. I didn't know about family engagement. I didn't know about universal family engagement. I didn't know best practices. Let's look at one more challenge from the word cloud, and then we'll move to the last part. I want to talk about the word belonging. That popped up as a challenge as well in the word cloud. Belonging. It's one of the larger ones. So I'm curious if, and it might be both, if you guys meant students feeling a sense of belonging or families feeling a sense of belonging in the school, or maybe both, and how we might solution for that. Both. I can definitely see that. So where do we start with that? Definitely both. Okay. What do you think, Kels?
You know, I I think about the start of my career compared to now, and sometimes those parents can ask very blunt questions that kind of hit you a little bit. And one of my parents asked, "Does my kid have any friends?" at the early start of my career, and that to me stuck out as a question of not only is my child belonging in the classroom, but am I belonging because I don't have this information? And that always like, we all have those conversations that kind of live in your head for the rest of your professional days, and that's one that lives in mine because I realized how interconnected they are and how that both answer really, really makes sense, that you it really has to be both. Um, I think I am looking at some of these answers going, "You guys have some of this figured out. That is wonderful." Belonging. Um, one of my we have a behavior interventionist in my building, and she said last year that there might be milk on my tables, but my kids are a family. And I think if we can focus on the important things and focus on the things that achieve belonging, a lot of other things will come.
Mm,
And I love how part of belonging is um, training and helping accepting others. But that just went away. Where'd it go? I love that accepting others.
yes. Provide the sense of this school is my second
Mhm.
home. I feel safe, understood, a place where I can succeed and help others. Did you just say that? No, but I love that.
That
It,
is Carlos said that that is absolutely perfect.
and incorporating culturally relevant material in their classrooms, that is huge. That is huge because not only do the kids see that, but then when families come in, they see that and they, one, might be surprised to see that,
Mhm.
but then they feel like, oh, I don't, my kid's not only seeing that at home, they can feel like their full sense of self is part of this place. They can be their full self here. That's huge.
I love the idea of sharing pictures with families too, as a way to show
Yes.
the families like, yes, your child is here and belongs.
Hmm. I actually I'll share one experience that uh, kind of bad and then kind of good. So my child, like I said, she's a toddler and she's in a daycare or kind of little school, whatever. And we have an app uh, that they use and they send us pictures. And I absolutely love the pictures because, like I said, it shows me, is she belonging? Is she making friends? Is she having fun? Is she learning? And we had a bad family engagement experience because they started sending pictures when she moved to a new classroom, and every single picture she looked sad. She looked so sad in every single picture. And I was so upset about it. I was like, A, why is she sad? B, why are they sending me pictures of her looking sad? And so it ended up starting conversations, and I was talking to the teacher. I was like, what's happening? And the teacher just didn't know how to talk to me as a parent, and uh, she didn't have any experience with family engagement, with talking with families. And she didn't know how to talk to me. And so we got it worked out, and it lots of things happened. She's in a new classroom and everything, but now when I see the pictures of her in a new classroom and I see her playing and smiling and having fun, that shows me I see the difference. I see her happy. I see her having fun. And like those pictures are huge. They see me, I see her belonging. And pictures can be so comforting for a family who might feel like they never get to see their kid because they're working all the time and the kid's always at school, or whatever it may be. Pictures can be huge. Yeah, but yes, get permission. Get permission to send pictures.
I was just gonna say, a lot of districts have their own individual policies, like ours has a form that they fill out, and we just have a little flag in campus that says, "Don't take a picture," and that kind of thing. So, do check with your district on what their specific policies are.
Yes. Okay, so last part, I'm going to tell you about Talking Points. So, our mission at Talking Points, we are a nonprofit organization, ed tech organization. So, Talking Points relentlessly removes systemic barriers to effective, equitable family engagement for the success and well being of every student. And what that means, how we do that, is we have a platform that, like I said earlier, is a text platform that allows you as a teacher to send messages to families via text. You can use your computer or a cell phone. You do not use your cell phone number, though, which is fantastic. You use your email address, and you can send messages to their cell phone because, like I said earlier, families are much more likely to have a cell phone number than reliable internet access, reliable Wi-Fi, all of those things. So it will send those messages in their home language. We currently support 150 plus languages. So if you've got a diverse family community, we're likely to support the language they speak. Even if they're all in English, we got you. And you can do loads of things. You can send polls, like I said. You can send announcements. We actually did just add Navajo for there are some limitations to Navajo because it is just being created in the translation space, because that has not existed in machine translation ever before. But good question. So for the families, there's text to speech, speech to text. If you write a message that's way too complicated for translation or text, then something pops up and is like, hey, this may not translate very well. You can send it, but we're letting you know. We've added in all of these things that's specifically for an educator. Oh, yay, I'm glad your district uses Talking Points and you love it. There's an education glossary. So if you type in, we're having a sub tomorrow, and it's going to translate, it's going to know you're talking about a substitute, not a sandwich or an underwater ship. I try to throw all the things in there that I can think of, because this app is something that I wish I could go back in time and use with all of my family. So if you would like to give it a try, here's a QR code and the website. It is free for individual teachers. Like I said, we're a nonprofit. Our funders and our partners allow us to give it to families for free because, like I said, universal family engagement is for absolutely every family to be connected for all of these amazing reasons and solutions that we just talked about for an hour. It's about relationships. It's about student success. It's not about making money. So you just download it, add your families. You can immediately start sending out messages. It's January. It's kind of a good time to start something new. And Kelsey, you've been using it for how long?
I am the biggest believer in Talking Points. I have had the funny connections with the families. I apparently found out that I'm a great teacher, but their daughter wanted to give me a makeover because I'd be better with makeup. And that was a great conversation to go back and forth. I have had the emotional, like I said, a student of mine had a parent pass away, and I was able to be there for the family. I was able to, not that we should work after contract hours all the time, but a family was all of a sudden experiencing homelessness, and we were able to get transportation set up so their child didn't have to miss school. I was able to communicate pictures of how cool their day is going, record the videos of reading success, do all of the things in a way that if the parents wanted to use the app, they can use the app. If they have a phone that is a little more old school and doesn't support apps, they can still do all of these things via text. And that technology piece too, amazing for letting everybody be connected. If you don't have a smartphone, you get the text messages. It has been a game changer. I do not think I've sent a parent email all year. because I don't see the point anymore.
It's just so much easier, I
Mhm.
think.
And we're so used to texting. Like, in our day-to-day lives, the parents are used to texting. I don't necessarily feel that we are the email generation that we have in the classroom anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a new generation. Parents don't see emails anymore. That's what
Yep.
people are saying. Yeah. So, would love for you to try it. I think it's kind of a no-brainer in my opinion, but listen to Kelsey, not me. But yeah, we absolutely super appreciate you being here with us, and the conversation has been so wonderful. Thank you for being vulnerable with us. Thank you for spending your time with us today. And got one more. We already did questions, and I will respond to questions that didn't get answered in the email. So if your question did not get answered, I will respond. If you wouldn't mind answering this question for me before you leave, would you like Talking Points to reach out with more information about any of these things or all of the above? Universal Family Engagement, Talking Points for Teachers, Talking Points for Families, which is the family app, Talking Points Research, which we have our own research team that we develop research. And then I could also send you lots of things. So it'll come directly from me. Uh, I'm definitely going to send everybody the deck with the challenges and solutions that we talked about. So grateful for you being here with us.
And thank you for being here and engaged. I know we didn't get to read everybody's comment and question, but we see them. And thank you for, again, that vulnerability, the honesty, and engaging with us.
Yes. And we will read all the comments after we get to see them. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the week.